Ghouls, Demons, and Fellow Weird Ones. This is book 17 out of 18 so far. You know, there will be more down the line, but I'm finally almost fucking done with the series playing catch up. So that's super exciting. We're getting close to my birthday. We're getting close to my lunar return. It's supposed to be a full moon in Leo. So we're feeling all the vibes right now. Super exciting. But anyway, welcome to book 17 of The Tale Behind the Weird Tales. And with that, what is book 17? It is act 1 of Melinoe and Asmodeus, When Worlds Collide. So oh my God, where do I begin with this story? Oh my goodness. When I didn't really know how I was going to release it, I honestly kind of wanted to release it in its entirety, which is 6 to 9 acts broken up. The numbers are significant. I kind of wanted to, it started off with 6, but then as I've been developing the story, it might go into 9. I don't, because I want to make sure the detail is there, and I don't want to rush things in an act. And I know I can do scenes, and I guess I'm channeling my inner Shakespeare with like this play, but it's really an epic poem. And that's how like the kind of I'm writing in prose, but it's also an epic poem. There's a lot within it. But I wrote act 1 in one day. I wrote, because it's so, okay, I'm jumping all over the place. I'm so excited. This is a huge piece for me, in a variety of ways. And I've been feeling at like a standstill with it, not for any other reason except that so much of myself and my life on a spiritual plane is embedded in this story. It's my own mythology. I have projected myself. I've inserted myself into it very, very much. You know, I'm Melinoe. Like that's my pseudonym. It stems from all of these meditations, sober and psychedelic induced, like all this different experiences, all of this creative energy. So much has gone into it, but I wrote act 1. I just started it, and so it's split into 2. So it has Melinoe's perspective, and then it has Asmodeus's perspective. And my husband, my beloved Asmodeus, my demonic knight, my Chad, he's Asmodeus. And there's a lot of symbolism that goes into that, and who I've seen him to be on a soul level, who I know myself to be on a soul level, who others have expressed to me to be on a soul level. I don't know so much about Chad, but yeah, I was inspired to write this story. I wanted to write a love story. And I wrote a love story in 5th grade. A Halloween story about vampires. You know, Twilight was starting to get big. I think I just read Twilight. I don't think I had gone into any of the other books yet. I don't even know if the other books came out. I'm foggy on that. But vampires were a big deal. It was in 5th grade, and I wrote Eldra and Claftonly, which Bo Clafton, you already know. For those who know, I had the biggest crush on him. He was my first kiss in 6th grade. I, got to date him, and it was a whole thing. It was very funny. Everything about it was super silly to me. But I was obviously crushing on him really hard, and I wrote him in my story, and people are like, his name's Bo Clafton, and your love interest is Claftonly, like a Dracula, but like, bitch, be for real. Like, it was very obvious and no shame. I turned it in, I read it in front of the class, I'm pretty sure, like, don't care. Like, I had the hots for this, for this guy, and I fucking did it. Like, I put my heart out there, my creativity out there. He inspired something, and definitely like a fantasy. We didn't have this like magical relationship or anything spectacular or crazy. In fact, like in 5th grade, I had a whole other boyfriend named Dusty, and it was just this whole other thing. I was sitting with that. I was like, I kind of want to revamp that, and I still might. Don't hold it against me, or whatever. I don't know what I actually want to fucking say, but I may or may not revamp my 5th grade story and just like mature it, because I don't have a copy of it. I don't know if my teacher would, if anyone would still have a copy of this fucking story. but I remember general, like, themes of it, and I would keep the names. Wouldn't fucking care. I don't know where Eldra came from. Elldra. That was the vampire babe. Me, and then Claff told me, Bo Clafton, such a weird name. But I wanted it to be obvious, but not obvious. And it was like very obvious. But anyway, so I'm reminiscing about me writing, and I'm having all these like experiences with Melinoe and Asmodeus and all this stuff happening in my life. And I was like, I'm gonna write a love story about my husband and I. And it's gonna be Melinoe, who's like obviously like a Greek goddess, and like there's the Greek pantheon in there. And then my husband Asmodeus is obviously Gnosticism and infernal realm, and I guess in a way like Christian. What, like, there's so many different bridges to spirituality, and like, I mean, you could there it was just this whole thing, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, because I'm also trying to process, like, I feel like religion is all saying the same thing in a different way. I feel like every culture has a god that represents something. So are all the gods of harvest, are they all individuals, or are they synonymous for one another? Luciferianism talks about deific masks. So I'm kind of like sitting with this and bridging it out, and or feeling it out, I should say, and kind of trying to decipher it a little bit. And so I kind of see how my husband and I are like different beings. It does seem like we're from different worlds, even though we're both Saturn ruled, like Capricorn Aquarius, for being two sides of the same coin, very different. And that's, modern astrology of Aquarius is Uranus, and Capricorn, Saturn. So then that could also be a huge, like, differentiation of things. But I really like to honor that traditionalism of Aquarius being ruled by Saturn. I think that there is something to that, despite the evolution of Uranus in this. So anyway, so I started to write the story, and I like the feminine and masculine perspective. I like, because, like, my husband, the twin flame journey, right? So you mirror one another, and yeah, the two sides of the same coin. It's like they're facing each other, and a lot of different symbolisms in that way. So I wrote Melinoe's perspective, and then I wrote Asmodeus' perspective, which is obviously influenced from Stephanie Meyer and Twilight. Like, I'm not going to deny that subconscious. I mentioned Twilight, and I was just kind of thinking, oh yeah, she wrote it from Bella, and then she started Midnight Sun, and that faded away. As I liked having it in the book together. So, like, the left side, the yin, is the feminine perspective. The right side, the yang, is the masculine perspective. And then you have the sun and the moon, and there's a lot of, like, symbolism of, like, the infinity symbol, the dance of the masculine, feminine, the poles, the yin yang, like all of that duality and complexity that is within humanity, existence, the universe, all of the above. So it was really fun for me to write, and I got to the conclusion of the story, and I was like, well, it could be it by itself, but I wanted it to be more. It was 18 pages on my Word document. So 18 times 2, that's what, 36. So 36 pages total between the two sides, and mirroring each other in like a poetic stanza. And I was just like, I mean, I could leave it, or I could continue it. Oh, it could be a series. I wanted it to be something more. But I couldn't relax sitting on it. I like posted on my blogs. I also wanted feedback, but I needed certain parts of my life to play out for me. I couldn't finish it because I needed other parts of my life to play out for inspiration for the story. And I'm still in the process of it. And I either procrastinate till things are, like, overwhelmingly having to play catch up, or I jumped the gun and released things immediately. But it felt significant. 17th book, 17, the star, Aquarius, like all the symbolism in that. And I needed to release it. And I had it on my website, and then I took it off my website. And then I've been designing books. I'm like, oh, I can't just have a PDF. I can't just have a PDF on my blog. I needed to design its book, but I really wanted these other artists to, because I wanted it to have a really beautiful, like very specific occult cover. And then I wanted the rest of the book to be like more simplistic in the way that it kind of still is. But then I was like, well, if it's gonna be me, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna use Canva. Like I had to kind of get out of my comfort zone with myself and my vision for, doesn't mean that I can't have this, but I asked a few like European, like super deep, like asked a few people if they would be interested, and then like it just like my other books, the illustration side of it just fell apart, and so I went with the graphic design. And I will disclose this. I will be very honest because I have issues with AI art. Like, and like, like I hadn't done this before. Like, I'd mess around with AI art just to like see what it was when people were talking about it. And then like, I stayed away from it. I don't think it's harmful for reference. Like, I think I know I need to just do a video on my feelings about AI because it's really complex. But I don't think it's an issue to use as a reference. But like I was really struggling with finding graphics that fit what I wanted. So in the cover, the only thing that is AI is the male and female, Melinoe and Asmodeus. Because I just couldn't get what I wanted. And so I did use AI to help me with that. And then I took part of that image and then I edited the fuck out of it, cropped a bunch of stuff out, and just kept their silhouette. And then I added like the moon graphic and the astrology, and I intentionally placed the astrology in a really specific way. Like I have Capricorn over Melanoe and Aquarius over Asmodeus, and so what that symbolizes is my Jupiter is in Capricorn, my husband's Jupiter is in Aquarius, and I always joke that we are the key to each other's abundance and expansion and growth and all of the blessings of Jupiter, right? Which I think is really fitting. And so, but that's like, and that also goes into more of the dance and the back and forth, the teetering, the swing, all of the things within my husband and I. And so yes, I will admit to that. I'm transparent. I know some people are gonna hate that, but I tried other avenues, and it just was one of those things like this is the only way I'm going to get it to be able to be released. And that's probably a piss poor excuse to some people, and sorry, but not sorry. Like I don't know. I'm trying to find this balance in this modern world with AI, and I will dive into AI on Moon Juice episode for those who care to hear my complex perspective and nuance in use of AI. But anyway, that's the only AI art I've ever done, especially to like put into things. Like I said, I adjusted it. I didn't know what else to do. But the moon and all the other things I did myself are like the graphics on Canva. And so I'm trying to be real honest about how I've done all of this because I think artists deserve respect. But I know the AI situation's really needed right now. So please don't hate me too much. But anyway, so the characters, there's descriptions. So I had a friend, I've talked about Phoenix a few times. She had mentioned to me, she took a mushroom trip, like a very intense mushroom trip. I don't know how many grams she took, but it's huge. And she told me about this experience of like she was looking through photos and she saw Chad and I, a photo of Chad and I, and she saw our like soul image and like how she described us. And I had like a vision that came through as I was listening to her voice note about it. And that's how I designed Melinoe, and then a little bit of Asmodeus. There's a lot that came from that mushroom trip of hers. Like she had a past life experience that she told me about, and it confirms some of my own experiences with like my husband and I, that we've been together since the dawn of time, and he's always been crazy about me, and I've always been this weird witchy woo, and all of these things, and he always loved me, always defended me, has always been this masculine demonic night presence in my whatever parts of my journey that I've been on. And Chad's always been very much Chad and himself, and I've had a variety of different forms, which goes into my character and all the different transformations she goes through. And and like, Chad and I, we were having sex on mushrooms. I was on mushrooms, he wasn't. But I saw what she had mentioned. Could have been obviously influenced on a subconscious plane, but like because it's a fawn, so half goat, half man. I saw the fawn side of him and like his fur. It's just to be honest about it. And so there's a lot of that symbolism from those experiences that went into the creation of the description of the characters, which and there is some historical accuracy to it, but there's also my own personal gnosis behind this and my own creativity. So that's like what went into the story, and it kind of goes into how Melinoe and Asmodeus met. So when worlds collide, when the Greek and the Gnostics came together, when there's this bridge or collision, I should say, of theology, religion, philosophy, culture, everything, two completely separate beings from different realms, different worlds, different spectrums of everything merge together in love and harmony, and how do you center that? And of course, there's also like the historical, like the royals that would, like, you would marry to bridge kingdoms, and then you'd have that expansive kingdom. So there is like an element of like Hades and Lucifer. Like there is like a prophecy, not to ruin too much, but there's a prophecy that Hades and Lucifer came together and was like, our children will marry. And but also not so much from their decision, but of course like the fates, and it ties into everything. But it goes in through the description of the characters and how they met and how they fell in love. And then just kind of like, okay, because like when I met my husband, all of a sudden, all of this knowledge, all this, everything changed. And it kind of goes through that story of like, oh, they met. And like, yes, there's this passion and lovemaking and all of the intoxication that comes from falling in love. But then it's also the reality that sets in of like, how do we collaborate? How do we merge together? How do we morph as one while still maintaining our individuality and things along that nature? So it's a beautiful poem that kind of goes into that and into their personal conclusion of their love. And then it kind of ends with this, okay, so they met, and now what? And that's what I've been working on and going through the different acts and trying to make sure I piece it together. And of course, this could all be like one nice novel, big, large, epic poem. But what I liked about making sure each act had its own artwork, is then I could combine it into like a super book with all there's so much different creativity. I thought about all the different ways that I could express this and release it. Excuse me. But there was a huge need to, I guess, another cliff to jump off of, another moment for me to put myself out there. The part of me wanted feedback, and there are other people who are like, oh, I can't wait for more. I can't wait for more. Like I said, there is a frustration side of me, especially because like I still haven't felt like I like I've started working on it in certain ways. Like, I can obviously get into like act 2 and 3 and a few, maybe even into a few other, there's a part of me that's like, I need a certain part of my life to conclude before I can continue to write this story. For a variety of reasons. One, certain details might change, and this goes into like, I really like raw first drafts and things like that. And I'm not a big editor. I get really irritated when people try to like, oh, insert this idea into the storyline. It's like, no, I want the originality of the idea to remain. And I'm not saying that there's not a purpose to editing or like having an editor like insert ideas or like bridge plot holes. And I get the purpose of that process. Like I don't want to sound ignorant to that. I don't like it. If that's just my preference, is like I want this to maintain really true, really, really, really true to itself and myself. So I'm deeply protective of it. And so I have a storyboard and I'm continuing on, but like I sat down and it took me between both sides, it took me, I'll say 6 hours total, but like there was breaks and stuff in between. But like pure writing, I would argue 4 hours of just writing the act one. Like it came out really quickly. And I had a few people read it, and I had a couple typos that I fixed, and, I changed a couple word choices, and the few times that I've reread it, but I love it as it is. And I want to continue it on. And I kind of like the idea of very slowly releasing bits and pieces of the act, especially because of how deeply embedded my life and my love story is within it. There's this, not really fear, but, like, well, when the story's over, well then, like, what is this epic love story of Melinoe and Asmodeus, of Sarah and Chad? And so maybe I'm hesitant because I don't want it to be over. That, it's like, oh, well, when it's done, it's done. And then what? Well, I wanted to continue on. So I like the idea of, you know, taking years in between each act, but I also really love it being complete. And just because the story is complete doesn't mean my story, my husband's complete. But there is a lot behind it that I'm still trusting the process through and diving into and all of the above. But what I liked about Act One is it can stand on its own. But I also alluded to there being more. And even if I don't do more, let's say I rebel against the masses who are going to beg for, 2, 3, 4, 7, 9, it's that it's letting people know that there's possibility, that, because, all the other love stories, and I guess, like, or what I'm trying to insinuate, because, you've seen every Disney film, like, oh, they met and they fell in love and it's happily ever after. Well, I left it with this cliffhanger of, like, what does happily ever after look like? And it's like, I don't know what the future brings, but what I do know is we're going to continue to rendezvous until life changes. And then Act Two, leads into the change, and I have, like, the plot, and I have all of the details, which I've also, in a way, have written in my lunar memoirs. If I write my memoirs, which are personal experience of everything, then there you have it. You can see how things will mirror between this mythology and fantasy that I'm writing versus, like, the real life journal diarist entries, but I also really want to mention that this is not just some dark romantic, like, smut novel. It's an epic poem. It's a mythology. There's a lot of spiritual initiation within it, and details are there for spiritual occultic symbolism, not just spice. It's romance. It's a lot more than I think people will see at the surface. And I mentioned that because, I was like, oh, I wrote this, and to one of my occult friends, and I thought that they would get it. And they're like, oh, I'm not really into, like, smut. And I was like, this is not a smutty book. It mentions sex, but not like smut novels. Like, just because it has a sex scene in it doesn't mean it's smutty. People are so fucking irritating about that shit to me. Like, it fucking irritates the living fuck out of me. I was like, yeah, it's just a love story. It's just a dark romance. No, you have to see it for more than what you're thinking it is. Like, it felt like a judgment of me, not so much like a constructive critique of the story. It felt like the same surface level bullshit that people project onto me. It's like, because once I explained it, they reread, like, they didn't even reread it. They did reread it, but I explained it to them, and they're like, oh, that makes sense. And, like, I want to reread it with that knowledge, and which I understand, like, the more awareness you have, you reread something, it expands your horizons, it grows, like, I get that. But I was just like, you went into this judgmental with your superficial expression of me. Go fuck yourself. I was so irritated. And I don't want to have to ever explain this. And I'm not saying that I would tell the audience to go fuck themselves if they only see it at a superficial level. This was a person who I had an understanding, or thought I had an understanding of their depth of knowing me, just to realize it was triggering because it was a triggering moment because like my family has always seen me on a surface level. A lot of people have missed my depth and my intention and my purpose and my passion and all the things. Like every detail is so meticulous that it's frustrating that you don't think that I took it that far, that seriously, because look at me. I'm flamboyant and dramatic and expressive and girly and prissy, and it feels like an attack against femininity. You're not taking me seriously because you think I'm a bimbo, and that is something I struggle with to still very strongly working on it. I feel like a lot of women deal with that, especially when you embrace your femininity more and more. And so this was a man who was like talking to me about this, and I was like, the women who read it got it right away, but this fucking man didn't. And so it was a whole thing. So I like to express that in the process of creating this. And that also it motivated me to pause in my writing because like I do feel like this is a solid foundation opening act. But if I really want that depth, that intellectual, philosophical, spiritual depth to hit the way that I want it to hit, the impact I want it to make, I'm going to pause and I'm going to be even more intentional about what I write. Not that I wasn't intentional before, but I guess it motivated me to take a step back and surprise people with how the rest of the story goes. And then if I can't achieve that, then I'm going to leave it as beautiful as it is, with this simple Disney love story that it could be perceived to be. Even though I know how deep it is for myself. But maybe I don't know, there's lessons, like maybe this is just for me. This is okay to release. And then the rest of it, I get to just hold within my heart, within my experience with my husband. And people get to kind of read it in my memoirs if they so choose to, or my poems. But there is this story that I don't want it to just drop off. But I'm kind of at this hesitant point, but I couldn't not release it as it is. So I'm going through a lot with this story. And that's why I can't make any promises or release dates on when Act 2 or 3 or anything will be released. I was kind of really sitting and forcing myself because part of it's just initiating. For me, a lot of it's initiation, and I do procrastinate a lot. So I'm aware of my struggles and tendencies and behaviors and all of the above, but I've really sat with it and on pause. And just because, like, here's the thing, I had this idea for like over a year before one day it was like now. And I have to trust my knowing that I know when it's time to sit down and write a fucking story. And because I have 18 of them. And all of them had this moment that nothing else mattered. It was time. And so I'm really honoring my ability to know when it's the right, I guess, energetic time or divine alignment for that piece to be created, to be removed from the spiritual realm and put into the physical realm. And that's why I take notes of everything, and I allow the seed to grow without forcing it to grow. So that's something I've been working on, like with my art. And it goes back to what I've mentioned in a few of my other videos about like the list. I have all this list of all these things that I want to do. And I know a lot of artists really struggle. It's like, oh, unfinished project, unfinished project. But I do believe that there's a reason for it. But I also firmly believe in like Michael Jackson and Prince, who would, Michael Jackson would record an idea because he didn't want it to go, God would give it to Prince, like that whole thing. I firmly believe that if you don't act on something, the universe, God, whoever, will give it to someone else who will act on it. So that's why I do write things down and I do continue to work on things. But I have learned that I can relax and ease into when I release it to the public. In this age of instant gratification and social media, there's another thing I felt pressure to like produce. And because I can mass produce naturally. So there was this part of me that's like, well, if I can do it, why am I not doing it? And just like hyper productivity, capitalism, America, blah, 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 like super stress, social media, all of the overwhelm. And I was like, no, most like fucking perfect, stellar pieces of art and albums took years to develop. And yet maybe they wrote a song 5 years ago. Like there are so many artists who like, yeah, I wrote this song like 20 years ago and it never got put on an album. We've had 7 albums since then, but I came back to it and I really want to release it now because of some experience was missing to perfect the piece. And so I'm really trying and working towards allowing myself to ease into that. And I feel like that's, part of the surrender and the loss of control and trusting the process and more Pisces like energy and wisdom and things like that. So anyway, with all of that, that is Melinoe and Asmodeus. And I put Asmodeus. I go back and forth between Asmodeus and Asmodeus. Asmodeus is more like a sweet pet name. It's more romantic, but like Asmodeus is formal. Especially because like in history, it's like considered a title, not just like a demon's name, but like a title. So anyone can be an Asmodeus if they so initiate into it. Same with Lucifer. Lucifer's considered like a title. And that gets into history and etymology and a few other things. So Asmodee kind of seems to be more of like the name, like Asmodeus Asmodee, which sounds obnoxious. But you can see where there's a difference in like a title or like a name, but I also wanted to keep the sweetness in there, which see, I'm pretty sure you see that through the story of when Melinoe chooses to use what phrase. Okay, so yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Act 1. And for those who, continue to follow along the journey with it, I appreciate it. And I am open to hearing what other people say. It will motivate me. If people are excited about the story, if they want to hear more, that will motivate me to write more. But I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what I want to do regardless. But that it is just good to know, because sometimes I'm like, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, I feel like it's complete on its own, but it can also continue on, just like Cinderella, Snow White, all of these stories. You the story doesn't end just because you got married. It's like, well, and what happens? Happily ever after. What happens after happily ever after? And also, who is this happily ever after? Or is it just the beginning? Like, what is the final moment of happily ever after? Everyone thinks that it's marriage or you just have to meet the right person and then it's happily ever after. It's like there's so much experience that comes from each finish line, each milestone, each cycle. So who knows? But anyway, I'll read the consecration, the dedication. Melanoeand Asmodeus, When Worlds Collide, Act 1, by Melinoe Morningstar. Moi, Sarah Odell. I would like to dedicate this epic poem to all hopeless or hopeful romantics, to all of those who see beauty in the darkness and darkness in the beauty, for everyone looking for their most perfect divine counterpart. I dedicate this tale to all of those who know or who seek true love. I wish for you all that it is found. I pray you all brave the journey to keep such a love locked away in your hearts. May you mirror, may you dance, may you take a leap of faith on your destiny with one another. There's a lot of bravery that comes with being in a twin flame, divine counterpart, blah, 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 in a marriage, in a union, in a relationship, to bare your soul and live a life with another human being authentically and vulnerably. It takes a lot of courage. And it does feel like two planets colliding into one another, because it's so different. And what do you do with it? You enjoy it and embrace it. It's an adventure, it's a journey, it's a ride, it's an experience of a lifetime. And I am truly blessed that I have the husband that I have. And so I know I didn't outright dedicate the story to him. There's a lot mentioned in the initiation and the introduction, and there's so much in my love letter to Chad in everything that I do. But I also want to make it known explicitly, if I haven't been clear about how smitten and crazy I am about this man of mine, I dedicate this story to him and our life together and the journey that we are on in having two worlds. 1 + 1 = 3, right? And this um and this thing that we're creating between the two of us. So with that, I think I'm gonna conclude this story time. So cheers, everyone. That was book 17 of the Tale Behind the Weird Tales series. And I hope you enjoy. You can subscribe to my blog and get access to all of my self-published works. My lunar memoirs that I mentioned. There's a lot of other writing besides my books. It's mainly my books in at the store to buy individually, but if you subscribe to the blog, you get access to everything. My lunar memoirs, my astrological writings, random thoughts, dreams, philosophies, theories. There's a variety of different things that I have published out there. So enjoy if you would like to. There's monthly, yearly, and lifetime options available. If you would like a physical copy of things, you can reach out to me and I will gladly get one printed for you through Canva. It's a pricier option right now, and that is until I find a better way of creating physical copies. And for when that happens, you'll see it in the store. But also if you want like one of my first press, first versions, first editions, let me know and I'll get you a Canva version printed. It'll be signed and all of that fun stuff. It also comes with a bookmark. I have bookmarks that go with every story. I keep fucking forgetting about that. So anyway, thank you. And I'll see you next time.